Just got my hair right. I can't actually see this. I'm joking. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Hello and welcome. Today, when you are watching this, is the Uposatha, the Buddhist holy day, the new moon of June. I actually record these talks, videos, the day before because they take quite some time to upload to YouTube. But the day before Uposatha, us bhikkhus, and I guess the nuns, bhikkhunis, we shave our heads, clean our robes. As you know from my more informal talk last time, that was an ongoing process. So all that was to be done this morning was, in the nature of those ablutions, was just the head shaving thing. Wasn't sure whether to do the eyebrows or not this time. I'm not visiting Thailand, and it's really just a Thailand thing, a Thai forest tradition thing. All the monks in Thailand shave their eyebrows. It is part of their culture and a tradition. But not so in India, which is where I was ordained and my Sangha is, of which I am a part. So I feel, why not let them just grow a little. But during this activity of mine, in my wash area, I won't say room because it's sort of just adjoining, it is a room I suppose, it's not out in the open, it has walls. I'd left this fan in here. I have just all I have in this room for to keep cool is a small electric fan, which is enough. It also keeps to some extent the mosquitoes and the flies away from you. But because of it's been so hot, it's on most of the time. Because it's so humid, it collects water and then drips the water into its switches on its base. So whilst shaving my head, it went bang. And all the fuses went, which didn't matter because that was the only thing running. But this I thought, well, before I can talk, I need to fix this fan. This is something that's been kindly offered and provided by lay people. And it's partially my fault that it broke because I've noticed the water dripping and maybe I need to be a little bit more careful. This is anicca, what we call impermanence. On this Uposatha day, well, tomorrow for me, but whilst you're watching this, it is in Buddhist countries and for Buddhists all around the world customary. It can be often pushed forward to the next weekend or the previous weekend, depending on when the Uposatha day falls. But it is common for Buddhists, lay Buddhists, to take on the 8 precepts. So they don't eat in the afternoon, they refrain from entertainment, and don't lounge around on soft furnishings. So take a little bit more of a renunciant or ascetic approach to life in order to really concentrate on their practice of meditation. It isn't just ascetic, it is a practicality. When we don't eat in the afternoon, we have less to do with regards to even thinking about eating, planning it, but cooking, eating, cleaning up afterwards. Also, you know the food is out of the way for that day, so it's far from your mind. You can also visit your monasteries, as they do in Buddhist countries, the temples, and they offer dana. They maybe refresh or take the precepts or refuge in the Triple Gem. These are the common activities all over the world these days, and to some extent online these days, for people to practice at these times. For me, it's my calendar. It's not part of a religion or a faith or a belief system. It is the way I actually operate. I do shave my head, cut my fingernails and wash my robes every 15 days. This means that every 15 days that happens, without me having to think, do I need to do this today? Do I need to do that today? Should I adjust things accordingly? No, this is my calendar as it was the way that the Sangha lived in the time of the Buddha, and actually how bhikkhus in monasteries and temples all live harmoniously together. For instance, the big cauldron of dyeing and cleaning jackwood solution in my temple where I was staying for some time in Thailand the fire would be set by a samanera. We're not allowed to light fires ourselves because it could kill many insects and animals, but the samanera can make a little fire under a cauldron of water with the jackfruit wood in there to boil up, for us to all dye our robes in order of seniority on the same day. That was easy where I was staying. There were only 2 other monks there and 1 samanera, 2 more bhikkhus and 1 samanera, so not much of a queue. Here I don't do that. I just wash them by conventional means in a bucket of water and a bit of soap. But on occasions it can be done, as there is a video on this channel when I have done that since being in Sri Lanka. For me also, on this day, it is usual for bhikkhus, if they're with their Sangha, as I say, mine is in India, for us to meet with the brothers in the temple and we recite the Patimokkha, our 227 rules from the Vinaya, to which we abide by, and they support us in the core precepts which you abide by, of no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying or taking of intoxicants. These are the sort of also the most serious precepts for bhikkhus also, and the way they are very well supported is by having many other supportive structures around, as well as people, but rules and ways of behaviour that steer us away from any eventuality that may cause a breach of those more serious offences, in a kind of staged way that works very effectively and has done for 2,568 years, unchanged. Hence, one can say it's a system that is working successfully because it hasn't had or been adapted. Where it has been adapted in more modern traditions, maybe not so modern for some 100 years ago or further back, but even in recent times with different, what one might call secular traditions of Buddhism, which are more meditation based in the West, where they've adjusted those precepts, you have seen and people have witnessed problems and those kind of organisations coming and going, and ones that are there now. They've got a lot to live up to survive another 2,000 odd years to prove that an adaptation of precepts works. It never has before. So this doesn't give you the faith as in belief in this system, it gives you actual proof, evidence of this system. Someone asked, actually, they said it was a rhetorical question, whatever that means. I think a question where you already know the answer. Although I think most people asking questions, if they dig deep, they know the answer. Where is the evidence of Buddhism, the intrinsic evidence of Buddhism today? Well, if you go to Buddhist countries, the evidence of Buddhism today is there. It's very evident in terms of buildings, temples every 100 yards, and many monks walking around. This is the physical evidence, and outside of Buddhist countries even, there's quite an abundance of practice going on. Especially you can see with these online resources these days, so much of that going on in terms of Dharma talks and meditation. There's the practice that's ongoing, but in terms of Buddhism's continuation as a religion, if we think of it perhaps not so much of as a religion, but as some people do, you know, a philosophy or a way of life, if it didn't work, it wouldn't still be here. So that's proof enough. As if you needed proof, it's not required, because all the Buddha actually taught, which is quite simple in the sense of his teachings, is that you should try it out for yourself. Whatever teachers come along, whatever teachers say, then this is all well and good, but including himself, whatever the Buddha said, whatever he taught us, was to be tested, experienced for ourselves, not to be believed. And there we see the intrinsic evidence of what is only become called Buddhism, but a practice, or the truth, the Four Noble Truths, and then the Noble Eightfold Path, the practice leading to this liberation. So my responsibility on this day with my Sangha would be to go for this recitation of the Patimokkha, but alone, living alone, as I am now here in Sri Lanka. This we don't do. We just declare our purity, which we can do as often as we like, but we reflect on, well, actually what I try to reflect on each and every day, but reflect in a formal, we do have a little formal part of the chanting we can do alone, to just confirm that we have been keeping sila. Is there anything we need to address that warrants discussion with our Sangha? In my case, I have my Sangha back home, in which case I could send off an email or a message to my teacher and take advice in that from him, or from them, my teachers there. But this not being necessary, I reflect on my practice, how's it going, and also how is living alone affecting, is it improving and my own personal development in the Dharma and my practice, or is it leading me astray? This too I have to reflect upon, as do you. So once again I ask you, how is your practice, by which I mean just, are you able, is it easy enough for you to keep precepts? You may not be Buddhist, you may have no interest in religion, but presumably if you're watching this talk, or what I'm saying now, listening to it, something has caught your attention to interest you in doing something to maybe improve life for maybe you and for people around you and others, but essentially to find some contentment which will result in happiness that is perhaps a little different from where we ordinarily look for contentment and satisfaction in materialistic things, such as, drinking, eating, smoking, entertainment, these kind of things. When you see monks living like this and living in temples and monasteries, you know they are doing something different. You also know it's something ancient, and you possibly think, well, that's also something very spiritual and magical, so they may know something we don't. In fact, we know what you know. We know what the Buddha taught us, that there's suffering, a cause of suffering, but we know there can be an end of suffering and the path leading to the ending of suffering also. But you already knew that there was suffering. There's nothing spiritual about that. You stub your toe on a rock, it hurts. Or you really need to go to the toilet, but you can't just yet, you haven't reached your destination. It's suffering. Everything is unsatisfactory in that sense. So this is the point of the practice, as we call it. And as lay people and myself, I reflect on how we support this practice, which is not only just those precepts, keeping a standard, a virtuous standard of moral behavior in our everyday activities, both with people and alone, with an assured sense of responsibility over that, because, you know, we're not looking at people judging us perhaps for telling a white lie or maybe swatting a mosquito, something like this, because those are serious breaches of the 5 precepts, but nobody's going to tell you off for that. Nobody's going to be bothered whether you drink alcohol. They're going to be more bothered if you don't. And, you know, sexual misconduct can be viewed in many different ways. Stealing, even taking the odd thing from here, evading the odd bit of tax, all this, that and the other, can all be, you know, taken very light-heartedly. But these are very serious precepts as far as Buddhism or Buddhist practice, this practice, is concerned, but which wouldn't be frowned upon at all in ordinary everyday society, not just these days, but going back historically, forever. We are, as humanity is, quite relaxed about such things. Of course, serious breaches of actual murder, killing of other humans, and even, you know, unnecessary killing of animals is more frowned upon, of course. But in Buddhism, we take a very black and white view on sila, because it is what supports us in the other parts of our practice, which are meditation and the development of wisdom. And I've coupled the two together because we really get the development of wholesome mind states and reduction of unwholesome mind states. That is the development of wisdom from the practice of meditation. If you don't follow the teachings of the Buddha in respect of what we call sila, but moral virtue, keeping precepts, then you will not be able to attain to the deeply absorbed states of meditation that bring so much actual, real, unconditional satisfaction, pleasure and joy to us, without any expenditure, with not so much time involved. Just regularity is more important and commitment than time spent. You don't have to meditate for hours or go on 14-day retreats. Just put aside 15 to 20 minutes or an hour, if possible, every day to meditate, and the results will be so evident within 7 days. So that rhetorical question, it's there to be seen for yourself. You don't need evidence or intrinsic proof, because you can actually see there's suffering, and you can see the reduction in that suffering yourself if you practice. So an easy way to reflect on how your practice is going is, well, am I better this week than last week? When the fan went bang, did I swear and jump around frantically? Well, I didn't swear and jump around frantically. I was perhaps a little frustrated, because with a language barrier, sometimes if you need some assistance in these things, it can be difficult. The first thing was to get fuses, because I knew that the fuse would have gone in the plug. And then also make some provisions, some other plans that if I wasn't able to fix it, to get it replaced. And as monks, we can't actually ask for things. We kind of have to sort of hint. This is all part of our Vinaya and our training. But there's no shortage of assistance, advice and help. But very often this can be actually quite obstructive when you kind of know what the problem is and it's a very easy fix and you just need a screwdriver and a fuse. There's all these offers of help coming from all directions. I know a man who can do this. I know where you could go and get this sorted out. You know, all these things are going to take rather a long time and require a lot of effort on many people's behalf. So we have to learn as monks to very carefully understand that they're trying to help, but just, you know, get the assistance we require to. So my way of doing this, not knowing the language, is to just get on with it, and they see what you're doing, and just say thank you, yes, and then carry on with all of the offers. You know, much like healing the body. If I think I collected up all of the ointments, both modern and Ayurvedic, medicines, balms and treatments that I've been offered just from going on Pindapat with a couple of plasters or bandages on my ankles in the last couple of weeks, I could probably open my own pharmacy. There's such an abundance of help and generosity here. And I think humankind generally, even not in Buddhist countries, wants to help others. And we like to do that because this is our way of giving dana. It's a way of giving. Sometimes when we don't have much to give, we can give our expertise and help. We call this service in these sort of Buddhist circles and meditative circles. So this is another quality we develop. These are the things we reflect upon. So also I reflect on these each and every 15 days. It's a good time for us to bring our thoughts to how is my practice going in this situation. Pindapata this morning, it wasn't raining and I was wondering, we have to go in the rain whether it's raining or not, even heavy rain. But this morning it wasn't, it was very nice, and I don't know, for some reason I just started to count the number of regular faces I see. Every day, people going out of their way to offer something, to put some item of food in my bowl. And when I say going out of the way, I mean literally, even if I'm going past the house where they live, they are waiting outside. Possibly, I'm within about 5 minutes, the same time every day, but they're waiting for at least that time, probably quite a bit longer, outside for me to come along, because they know that I won't be knocking on the door or ringing a bell or making any noise. We go around unnoticeably, really. This is part of the way Pindapata has to be practiced. It is part of our practice. So we don't bring attention to ourselves, so they have to be aware, they have to spot us. We just walk slowly past the house. We maybe wait a little while if we know they're coming and they're not there. Otherwise we just continue walking and speeding up in between, when there's no one around, obviously. So just counting up, I got to 25 usual familiar faces, all whom have gone out of their way. Some stop there, come on a scooter or a vehicle, park and wait by their vehicle until I come along. Some even, one of the bus conductors stops the bus and gets off the bus to give me a samosa kind of thing. I'm laughing with joy at such kindness, isn't it? It's wonderful. But it's such an amazing, shocking thing to see, really, isn't it? You wouldn't expect this anywhere but a Buddhist country. And this happens, and I got to about 25 and lost count. And this isn't including the unfamiliar faces, the new faces, different people I see that are, the many in between that are just passing through or passing by that I may only see that once. They just take whatever they have. Maybe it's I think, often their own lunch, and they offer that. So they've got that on the way. They didn't expect to see a monk, but that goes in my bowl. Of course, and all the ointments and help for my wounds that are hopefully beginning to heal now. It's overwhelming. So from that point of view, in answer to my own question to myself in my reflection, how is it going here? Well, of course, it's very well supported. As you can see, I have this little place to live and everything that I need, very basic. I have fixed my fan. It's not fully put back together yet because some bits are still drying out, but I got it working for purposes of talking to you now. Otherwise, I'd be dripping wet with sweat here. I'm covered in flies by now. So I have all I need. My mind, we have these defilements of greed, of hatred and delusion. Now they're just the basis of all of our obstacles that we have that are the cause of suffering in the first place. Firstly, greed, wanting, chanda, thirst, craving, or even taking it to the extent of lust, wanting, not what you need, but more of something you really like. And then hatred, which can be that hatred or just something so subtle as aversion towards things. And delusion is ignorance, collusion, or confusion. The Pali word, because greed, hatred and delusion, we call the kilesas, defilements, are lobha, moha, dosa. No, lobha, dosa, moha. Moha meaning, loosely meaning, ignorance, but really meaning confusion, not fully sure about everything. Now, of course, it's not meaning being fully sure about everything, but with regards to what we need to be sure of in order to be free from suffering. Now, what do we need to be sure of? We just need to be sure of that there is suffering. We need to be sure that there's a cause of suffering. We need to be sure that there can be an end of suffering, and we need to be sure of the path leading to the end of suffering. We cannot be sure as to when the universe started and when it ended, how many Buddhas there were or how many there will be, or the powers of those Buddhas. We cannot be sure of the exact results of karma even, all of the actions of our body, speech and mind, how that will affect our futures. Other than generally speaking, if we do good, good will happen. If we do bad, bad will be the result. But we can be sure of those core Buddhist teachings of suffering and the end of suffering. This is what the Buddha taught us. Now, this is what we review, this is what we reflect upon when we ask ourselves, how is our practice going? Am I able to exercise a little more restraint than before with regards to things I want as opposed to things I need? Now, as the life of a renunciant, that's very easy and plain to see, which is why we live like this. So I can not tick a box fully, because there's always things I'd like, perhaps a little bit more of this in my bowl and a little bit less of that. But we dare never say, because you'd only get that one thing. And as we know, when we get what we want, if you have too much of it, and only that, it soon becomes something you hate, you have aversion to. If you love strawberries or mangoes and you only get strawberries and mangoes, you'll soon not like them. So they become the other kilesa of lobha. No, dosa, not liking, hatred. And this aversion, this hatred, we also reflect upon. Am I able to endure, have more patience with things? Well, yes, this we can look at. We don't have to see that, yeah, everything we put up with, but have we changed at all? You know, something we would have absolutely walked away from, not put up with, had no patience for some months ago or some weeks ago or even days ago, before we started meditation, before we started keeping precepts. Are we now able to deal with that more equanimously, with less of a reactive nature, able to just see it for what it is and say, well, it's not going to be here forever, it's impermanent. It's raining a lot, but this won't be forever. Soon it'll be sunshiny again. Or it's cold, soon it'll be warm. Or it's too hot, soon it'll be cool. You know, we have a more relaxed attitude towards the things we're not so keen on. And this is gradually eroding these kilesas. So we're practicing moral virtue, we're practicing meditation, and we're developing wisdom to gradually erode these defilements of greed, hatred and delusion, and also see, in order to really diminish this delusion that we might have still over suffering, that everything is impermanent, anicca in the Pali, and all things for that reason are unsatisfactory or dukkha, suffering, because even the things we like, we won't have forever, we'll be parted from, or we'll get fed up of. So therefore they are suffering too. But also that everything is out of our control, or we could even, the Pali word not self, anatta, means not self. I say out of control because it's an easier thing to understand. But the fact that we are not self, these bodies of ours, are far from within our control. If so, I could just say to these tiny bites that became inflamed wounds heal, and they would heal. But of course this would not work. I have no control over these. If they were left untreated, possibly you could get some sepsis or something, your heart could stop, you could die. Is this within your control? To some extent, but not fully. The body will do as it wishes, and very much so the mind will do what it wishes. The mind is like, firstly, an untrained animal, a horse for instance, that hasn't been broken in, ever ridden, that has to be put on a leash and very gradually brought into a way of training so that eventually you can actually get on the horse, mount the horse, and teach it to take you as a passenger, a rider, and ride the horse. This is a slow, gradual process, and this is our process, our practice that we're reflecting upon. Our measurements are that. How much have we changed in recent times, and going back as far as we can to when we began our practice. But like a photograph of ourselves, if we look at ourselves in the mirror each day, we don't change so very much. But if we look at a photograph of ourselves some years ago, we change a lot. And this is the same with the practice. The results of how we slowly erode greed, hatred, and delusion are evident like that, like a photograph from some time ago. You take a picture, an example, a set of circumstances, how you react is the new picture as compared to the old picture of how you might have reacted in the past. And that is how we measure our progress on the path in these reflections. And don't save this reflection to just the Vipassana days. You can reflect each and every evening. How did my day go today? Did I keep the precepts? Did I practice meditation? Am I developing more wholesome mind states? What am I thinking about more and more? And what am I thinking about less of these days than before? Identify it. Just use a few minutes, that's all, to reflect on these things. And where you identify your thinking perhaps about, I don't know, more materialistic ways of life and things, hedonistic ideas, then look at what it is you're doing each and every day. What are your actions of body, speech and mind which are leading to that way of thinking? And adjust just a little, or adjust accordingly to your behavioural patterns, your actions of body, speech and mind, and then later, another time, on another occasion, reflect upon what you're thinking about. Now, if your time is spent giving with generosity and with practicing meditation and keeping the precepts, you'll find that your states of mind, not only in your waking hours, but also when you sleep, you'll sleep more satisfactorily, more peacefully, with less dreaming, certainly without nightmares. If you dream at all, just pleasant dreams, and wake up feeling more refreshed than if you are really hampering your progress and burdening the mind with a lot of, I don't know. I think people have commented and made mention of, and I have really no experience of, but there's a lot of arguing, you could call it, debating and discussion and things that people get involved with online in social media. I even see, just not much, but people commenting a little bit beyond a comment, and having a conversation, not so much in this particular channel, in this format, but this kind of useless conversations that people might, people say, oh, I'm very stressed, there's so much going on, I don't know, Facebook or TikTok or something these days, how do I deal with it? Well, turn it off, don't watch it, unsubscribe or delete your account or something like this is what I say, because what more can I say, really? I can't see the point in it. If it's part of your business, then that's something different, but you have guidelines, of course. And if it's part of your personal life and it's important to you, operate these same guidelines. In fact, if these guidelines, even in that environment of social media, are in accordance with the Noble Eightfold Path, so that is based on right view, with right intention, and with right speech, especially there, in the written word also, right actions, and you have right livelihood, the right effort, mindfulness and meditation, then that is going to even support a wholesome way of life in the arena of social media too. Whether others will follow those guidelines or not, or maybe you'll lose a lot of friends, I don't know. I'm not experienced in such things. But you can use that as a way to show you whether it's a good thing or not. Probably not. So the point of what I'm doing here, yes, I'm on Pindapat. I was so surprised. I got to over 25, as I say, and then in between of those familiar places were quite a few others. And then that's not including the many offers from tuk-tuk drivers. Not always. It's one of these things. Sometimes 3 tuk-tuk drivers, and today also someone in a car wanted to give me a lift back here from the once I've been on my full route through the village and then into the town, the other side of the town, and then I return by the same route more or less, because I hopefully will get someone will give me a lift back, because I've seen everybody by then. Before I'd do kind of a circle, but it was too far to walk, and most of it was not really it was going way out of my way, so the distance was just too great. So I found a suitable route where I can see quite a few people, and today I think 2 or 3 options of tuk-tuks and someone in a car. Sometimes the last few days there's been no one around because the schools have been closed and various holidays and things, so I've walked all the way back. Not a problem at all. But that's, again, this is all dana. This is all people's generosity and help. And then the man who came to help me out with getting fuses for my fan, and the other man who came to bring a screwdriver, have all been helping me with dana. So this is very supportive. And my reflection on that is that hopefully for them to be doing that, I am demonstrating to them by my sila and the way I'm living that I am, after all this time, still a worthy cause for that support. I hope this is the way I understand it to be. And I've been here now, this coming full moon of June, so in another 15 days, I will have been here I've nearly been here 8 months now, over 7 months. And 7 months is the longest I've actually stayed in one location, with the exception of, we all often have to go to different places from time to time. In my case, when I was in India, I'd return to the main monastery every 15 days for this Uposatha, for the recitation of the Patimokkha. But with the exception of any days when I've had to go away to an event of some kind, or visit other monasteries, that's never been more than 3 nights, a maximum usually of 1 or 2 nights. With the exception of that, the longest I've stayed anywhere since becoming a monk in 2020. In fact, I can go back further than that, because before that I was staying in my van, but then I was going back and forth to Thailand. But the longest I've stayed in one location is 7 months, I kind of worked out. So this is the longest I've stayed in one place here in Sri Lanka, and also in the same place in Sri Lanka, within 100 yards. This vihara, I've been in 3 different viharas or rooms, which is a kuti, which is what we call a little monk's room, a kuti. This is a little separate building. This is the longest I've been in one place since becoming a monk, and since a little bit before that, actually, quite a few years before that. But from a monk's point of view, I've travelled around quite a bit: Thailand, India, Nepal, and now here. And on that reflection, the fact I'm still here and really have been able to settle, largely because of the kindness, generosity of support from local people here, and also people whom support me online via this platform, is encouraging, because it makes me realise that what I'm practicing, what I'm doing here, seems to be going in accordance with how I would have hoped it would, without thinking, even with the weather changing and what have you, that I really want to be moving. Now, I've only moved out as a necessity, as I explained previously in another talk, rather than desire. I've been looking for somewhere where I can stay. But one does also have to have the supportive conditions in place in order, especially if you're a monk, to do that. Having found that here, I hope to be able to stay for a good long time now, certainly through the next Vasa coming up from the full moon of July. Again, we'll need to seek permission from my Sangha in India for that purpose, and we'll be doing so. And yes, it's from that point of view, it seems to be going very well. Not having to travel, being supported in the basic 4 requisites of accommodation, of robes, of food and medicine. This is our 4 requisites that are provided by lay people, lay Buddhists. With that all in place, I need nothing more and am able to stay, and no reason to make any other moves. Now I've sorted the visa situation sorted out also too, so we'll be staying here. Little problems come up. The fan, I thought, well, that might be broken. That's mended. Sometimes we have some other technical issues with regards to this, but thankfully you support me and help me with that. Other than that, everything is going very well, and this is allowing my mind to, and it's taken some time, 7 months. I can really look over 7 months. I spent 7 months in Thailand at the beginning of, was it this year or last year? Last year, the beginning of last year, January till July, and until the Vasa, when I had to go back to India. And I noticed so much how my mind settled in that 7 months, not having to move around, just being in one kuti, in one monastery, just going on Pindapata every day, the same routine each and every day, waking up at 3 a.m, meditating, chanting, doing puja, going on Pindapata at sort of, dawn, coming back, having the meal, and then practicing, doing your normal duties around the monastery or wherever you're living or what you need to do, like myself today, and then settling down for practice, abiding in practice. As the Buddha says in many of the sutras, they went away for the day's abiding, which means you've finished your duties by really midday, and there's no food to be had after that. So you've cleaned up from eating in the morning, you've done you've washed, got your robes, you've got everything in place, you've mended anything that needed fixing, you've done your sweeping, and you sit and you practice. Maybe in the afternoon you might do for an hour some more sweeping or some other duties. You don't have to, but this is the practice, this is the routine. It's very simple, and then it's just meditation. And I noticed in Thailand, in that 7 months of that, my mind it just settled, almost like sand in water, or like one of those snow globes. You shake and then the snow settles. But this is a much slower process with the mind. And it was all stirred up again when I had to leave and go back to India to go back for the Vasa, like shaking this globe. But each time you do that, it settles more easily, more quickly, more readily. And I did notice coming here, it settled quite quickly and quite readily, and has remained settled, but even settled more so, because it just seems to be settling on a more into the future here, with less of a sense of urgency or need to find the next place to go. There really is not so much what next here, largely because of the supportive environment I'm in here, and also the fact that there is, in this where I am now as compared to where I was in Thailand, this is my own practice in solitude, whereas there I was part of a very, albeit a small Sangha, the 2 other bhikkhus and the samanera there, and a very large following of lay people coming and going each and every day. I was very much part of the temple. Here, I'm very much alone. But I don't feel alone. I see those people every day whom are feeding me. I see and talk with you, but see your comments and your encouragement each and every day, or most days, via this platform, this format, this media. And I feel alone in terms of seclusion to practice, but I think the development of this practice, the nature of loneliness comes into the kilesas as part of aversion, not wanting, is eroded it's gradually, but it is eroded after some time in practice anyway. So I haven't really felt lonely for a very long time. But the sense of being alone is liberating and a form of freedom to practice in this case. And that's what I've been reflecting on over the last few days, and will be today, which is your tomorrow, on this Uposatha. I haven't had the opportunity, or I have had the opportunity, but I wanted to talk today, being Uposatha. I've still got questions, comments and answers to go through. So I think there will be an extra video this week, an extra talk. We'll go back to a few more days, not too many, but tomorrow I'll be able to spend some time just going through your comments and questions and answering some of those questions, because they otherwise might get too many. And if I don't get round to finishing them all, maybe then we'll do it again the next day. It doesn't take me very long. What you see is what you get. The time this video is there is how long it takes me to do this. There's no pre-work to it or post-work to it. There's no pre-planning and no post even editing. It's just push the button and it's sent to YouTube, and that's it. So on that note, I think the point today was to remind us that there's a purpose in our practice. Our practice is simple: just keep precepts and meditate, and develop the wisdom, the clear seeing, to diminish any doubt about that there is suffering, and identify the cause of suffering in these defilements of greed, hatred and delusion, and by this practice gradually erode greed, hatred and delusion to become free from suffering in this lifetime. And this is how we can progress happily on the path towards Nibbana. So on that note, I hope there's something useful there for you to use or share with others. If not, just let it go and don't think about it anymore. But I hope you'll join me again in the very near future. Thank you for watching this time. Be happy and stay well. Sukhi Hotu.